If, like a good Latin American, you have ever heard the saying that goes, if they fight, they love each other, or if they hate each other, they love each other, this drama is for you. Pay attention because spoilers are coming. The series begins with a young man named Kanade, heir to a family of great power, whose father sends him, together with the members of his clan, to the high school where the daughter of his ex-wife, named Kanon, studies, with the goal of establishing contact with her. Upon arriving and seeing her face, the protagonist is quickly taken by her beauty, so without even hesitating, he approaches her and asks her to marry him right then and there. However, the young woman reacts poorly, and after rejecting Kanade, she hits him in front of his classmates.
やめてもらえますか?
After that, every time they see each other, they both begin to argue, so the protagonist informs his father of what happened, and he asks him to go visit her at her home. Once there, Kanon ignores him as usual and leaves her house without saying a single word. However, moments later, the young woman falls to the ground and Kanade arrives in time to rescue her. Several days later, the protagonist laments, full of fury, for not being loved back by Kanon, while he realizes that his feelings for her are growing stronger every day. On the other hand, we discover that a young man named Takato, leader of a youth gang expert in martial arts, arrives with his friends at the high school where Kanon and Kanade study. One afternoon, Takato goes with his gang to Kanade's house, and once both groups meet, they begin to fight until the protagonist's father arrives and confesses to both young men that they are brothers. Subsequently, he leaves with them to his office, and there he explains to Takato his intention for one of them to manage to get close to Kanon to make her happy. Thus, although at first Takato rejects his father's idea, after seeing a photograph of Kanon and realizing that he was in love with her in the past, he decides to accept the proposal and challenges his brother Kanade to win the young woman's heart. The next day, Takato approaches to speak with her, and after asking her out, Kanon surprises him by accepting his request right away and giving him a hug in front of the other students. Minutes later, we discover that Takato's younger brother named Ryu paid Kanon to pretend to accept his brother's proposal. Likewise, while Takato tells his brother what happened, Ryu is unable to stop thinking about her and realizes that he is also in love. Kanon, the heartbreaker. That same day, a new group of young people, led by the president of the student council, named Aoi, makes his presence known to the rest of the students, and moments later, we discover his rivalry with Kanade for being the most famous and successful leader with the girls. So when Aoi finds out that the protagonist is after Kanon, he decides to approach her and also ask her to marry him. However, after discovering that he does not even know her name, the young woman rejects him and assures him that she is aware that his only goal is to rival Kanade. After that, Aoi spends the entire night trying to remember Kanon's name. Once he finally recalls it, he excitedly rushes to the school to propose to her again, only for the young woman to give him the exact same response as before. What a loser! Shortly after, we discover another group of young people who are experts in dancing, led by a boy named Kuki, who decided to sign up for boxing classes with his friends in order to protect Kanon after seeing her cry the previous year outside the high school. Why is everyone obsessed with Kanon? Whatever. Thus, after watching her from a distance, Kuki runs after her and invites her to go out with him as well. However, Kanon rejects him in a bad way and leaves the place. She does not want anyone. At that moment, a fifth group of young people appears, led this time by the high school teacher, who, after observing how the rest of the leaders try to approach Kanon, goes to the students' personal files to read their information and falls in love with her too, since he realized that she is an orphan and has no money. Subsequently, we discover the sixth group of young people, whose leader is a well-known artist who in the past supported Kanon after the passing of her parents, and who, after learning that the other leaders are after her, decides to protect her from the consequences that the confrontations may cause her. Later on, we discovered that Kanon's father had accumulated numerous debts before dying, and that Kanade's father gave his sons an envelope with the money to pay off said debts when he met with them in his office. After that, Kanon began to look visibly angry about what happened and decided to work hard to be able to pay the money back to the protagonist's father, leaving aside any interest in her suitors. Upon learning of this, the high school principal, who had previously organized a contest to name the new prince of the high school among the group leaders, summons Kanon to his office and convinces her to pretend to be interested in them in exchange for money, with the purpose of incentivizing them and promoting their competition. Thus, the young woman presents herself before all of them and assures them that the winner of the contest will finally be able to become her partner. The next day, Kanade approaches Kanon to give her a bouquet of flowers. However, she does not even thank him and subsequently shows more interest in a cow figurine that her brother Takato gives her. With great anger, the protagonist sets out to win the contest so that he can be with her. In that context, the leaders of each group begin practicing and training alongside their peers for the competition. When the day of the celebration arrives, the students begin voting for their winner as part of the first stage of the contest, while the principal proudly watches the broadcast of the event from his office. After the voting, it is Kanade who obtains the highest result. However, in the second test, which consists of holding in laughter, Aoi manages to beat him and turns out to be the winner of that challenge. Following the third trial, Takato claims victory and the leaders begin the fourth phase. This stage consists of fighting a group of hooded men using only martial arts, with the assistance of just one helper to support them throughout the entirety of the difficult challenge. In this case, Takato and Kanade manage to defeat their opponents, and after carrying out several complementary tests, only 5 leaders manage to qualify for the second round of the contest. Thus, Ryu manages to snatch the spot from one of them, obtaining 4th place behind Takato, Kanade, and Aoi, and leaving Kuki in the last position. As a next step, the second round of the contest consists of having a date with Kanon in which they must confess their love to her one by one while being recorded by a camera that the young woman carries on her head. So the first of them to participate is Aoi, who, after talking with her about flowers, declares his love to her in a romantic and traditional way, leaving the rest of the students speechless due to his attention to detail. Second place, Kuki decides to confess his love to her in a more modern way. So when the basketball he is playing with heads in Kanon's direction, he takes the opportunity to approach her and declare himself. After that, it is Ryu's turn. However, out of respect for his brother, he decides not to confess his love and remains silent. For his part, Takato prepares a date with her at a park and takes advantage of their proximity while they play baseball together to declare his love. Finally, Kanade prepares a song for her, and when she enters the music room, he begins to play the piano to the excitement of the spectators. But after confessing his love to her, the protagonist invades her personal space to hug her, and Kanon ends up pulling away from him. Oh, Kanade, you are doing so well. Once all the leaders complete the final round, the peers begin to vote, and Kanade is ultimately crowned the winner of the contest. This causes concern for Kanon, who has simply been pretending the entire time just for the money the director gave her. It really is quite a difficult situation for her. Thus, the next day, when the protagonist approaches her to demand her company, she confesses the truth to him, and they both end up assuring each other how much they hate one another. However, Kanon leaves crying, since in reality she is falling in love with him and is not capable of admitting it. For his part, Kanade is unable to forget Kanon and plays the song he wrote for her over and over again in the solitude of his home. Regarding Takato, his brother Ryu convinces him to go and confess his love to her again, assuring him that he is the only one who deserves her. Several days later, Aoi's assistant observes Kanon throwing a photograph in the trash and decides to pick it up to investigate what happened. For his part, Kanade performs a concert for his followers, but he remains constantly distracted and unable to get Kanon out of his head. After that, while Aoi laments for not having managed to have Kanon's heart, his assistant gives him a photograph. And after seeing that it is an image of Kanade, he discovers that the young woman is indeed in love with the protagonist. Moments later, Aoi goes to Kanade's house, and after giving him the photograph and confessing that Kanon is in love with him, the protagonist finally convinces himself and runs out to look for her. Ultimately, in a flashback, we discover that Kanon fell in love with Kanade one day when, while she was working as a waitress, a student pushed her into the pool, and he, that is Kanade, instead of laughing, was the only one who came to help her. For that reason, the young woman decided to keep a photograph of him that had been taken that same day at the event. But since he was a wealthy person, she was afraid to confess her love to him given her situation. Back to the present, Takato goes to declare himself to Kanon again, but she confesses to him that she is in love with Kanade. Moments later, the protagonist finally finds her, and despite arguing at first, as usual, Kanon manages to face her fear, and after assuring him that she loves him, they both hug. And thus ends this drama. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, and thank you for watching. Until next time.